Welcome to the Real Advisor Podcast, TRAP, TRAP. Please follow us and join in the conversation on Twitter @Advisor Podcast, where you can suggest ideas and themes you'd like the TRAP team to discuss. Also remember to like and subscribe to our YouTube channel and leave a 6 out of 5-star review on iTunes. Doing all this really helps us, which means we can do more to help you. Now let's head over to the studio for the latest pile of TRAP.
Yes, indeed, dear Trappists. Welcome back to what many people are calling episode 28 of the Real Advisor Podcast, TRAP Trap. My name, as ever, is Lick Ninken, and joining me, as ever, are the 3 other horsemen of the apocalypse. Andy Hart, Carl the Voice Widger, and Alan the Storyteller Smith. Now, gentlemen, we have a show packed full of absolutely nothing, so let's start unpacking it straight away with yet more high-energy review reads by my close personal friend, the Right Honourable Mr. Andrew Hart.
Did you not do the chime for the close personal friend? Anyway, moving on. Couple of reviews today from good friends of ours and good friends of the show. First up is Dom Spalding, entitled 5 stars, excellent. I tend to dip in and out of podcasts when work and my bike schedule allows. This one I keep coming back to. Genuinely interesting, always insightful and thought-provoking. I don't always agree with the Bond episode, for example, but there's no point living in an echo chamber. Keep it up, fellas. Dom. Next up is Graham Foster, Fozzie, who we know also very well, part of our mastermind group, 5 stars. Well done, chaps, putting a TRAP podcast together. It's very good and refreshing to hear good quality financial planners talk and share client experiences. Loved the AUM podcast. All helps to enhance and deliver proper financial planning to clients and their families. Separate, great to hear some contentious views around exams and individual planning items, but always good to challenge the general noise that we have to deal with. Keep up the good work, fellas. P.S. I think Nick, Andy and Alan Ireland have the best chance to win the World Cup. Foz, back to you, boss.
I think Graham, who's a good egg, we like Graham and Dom, actually 2 of the really good eggs in our profession. I think, yes, Foz, that review would have come in a few weeks ago before England lost to Fiji and just played generally rubbish. So we're definitely out of the running. So yeah, okay, great stuff. Thank you as ever. And if you want to leave a review, you know what to do. In the so-called show notes, there's a link. It's dead easy. And also in the pinned tweet at the top of the @Advisor Podcast Twitter feed or X feed, whatever it's called today, whatever Elon wants to call it. Okay, let's give this show a topical timestamp so we can reference it when you listen back to it in years to come, which of course you're all going to do. Not. Mr. Widger, voice, the man in the arena.
Yes, indeed, the man in the arena. So this is a pretty famous speech from Teddy Roosevelt. So I've in the show notes, I've put in the link to a YouTube video of it where there's a great narrator actually talks through the speech, but it's really good. The reason I put it in and I thought about it was I spent some time last week with a bunch of very successful entrepreneurs and some successful sports people, and it's a kind of a quiet event that we put together with a few other people. And I just was minded after the few days of being surrounded by successful people in their chosen field, be it business or be it sport, and just the feeling of just listening to the stories. Like, there is no story as straightforward. There is no success as straightforward. There's always failures along the way. But the feeling of goodwill towards each other, the feeling of let's help each other. I just thought I was absolutely, albeit a little bit hungover coming away from it, I was definitely hugely inspired. And there was a lot of group emails going around, but also individual texts flying around the following kind of couple of days, which was just really cool and definitely inspiring. And that was in sharp contrast to some comments I have, or feedback I have directly got myself recently, but kind of more pointedly towards Metis. I kind of let the personal ones slide. I don't really mind them, but I take the Metis ones personally. It's a bit mad, I know. But I just thought I'd mention it. You know, be careful who you surround yourself with, who you're inspired by, who you listen to, who you're mentored by. I've got a really good group of people, I think, around me, and they're the people who inspire me. And look, we all have failures along the way. We all make mistakes along the way. That's okay. And that was the big thing that came out of it. So look, I just thought I'd mention it and thought it'd be worth talking about.
I'll just come back on that. There's nothing like, as you say, Nick, a topical timestamp referencing a speech made about 100 years ago. But nevertheless, that speech, of course, is timeless. Myself and my good learned friend here, Mr. Andrew Hart, know all about this. We had a bit of an exchange on this. I think it was last year, maybe the year before, when he was getting slaughtered online by someone or other. Some comments were being made about an article, I think, that you'd written, Andy, and I pointed something out to you. There is obviously that is a, as you say, a well-established speech, and if anyone listening to this or watching this hasn't come across it, do seek it out. There's one in particular, a modern version. A lady by the name of Brené Brown.
Brown, yeah.
She talks about this. So obviously, if you know her, she's a well-established author, journalist, academic, writer. And she was getting some flack for some comments that she had made. And she just absolutely nails it. We should put a link to her talk, I think it's a TED talk, in her speech, because she just says, look, if you are up there in the cheap seats at the edge, you're not in the arena, covered in dirt and mud and shit and just fighting your way through, I ain't listening to you. I don't give a shit what you say from voicing your opinion from the cheap seats. That's a brilliant articulation how Brené Brown says it. What do you think?
Yeah, and actually I obviously didn't know you were going to talk about Brené Brown, but in the end of Teddy Roosevelt's speech, he talks about daring greatly, and isn't her famous book called Daring Greatly?
Exactly right.
Could I just read this piece of the speech out, if you don't mind? Because I just thought this put the goosebumps going, right? So the credit belongs to the man who is actually in the arena, whose face is marred by dust and sweat and blood, who strives valiantly, who errs, who comes short again and again. Like, that's just part of it. But I just thought, yeah, look, as a business owner, it's not all plain sailing. It can be difficult, and it's just keep going, keep going, keep going.
Yeah, final thing on this speech, it is amazing. I had it actually printed out in my office. It was on the office back door. I did do a podcast on it where I read the speech out myself, and also then the final section was Brené Brown doing her thing about daring greatly. So yeah, if you want to check that out, it's on the Maven Money. I think it's called Man in the Arena. It's amazing. It is amazing, Carl. Thanks for bringing it up. Back to you, boss.
Very, very good. Very good. What a way to start the show. Thank you for that, Carl. Mr. Smith, an apparent lack of understanding of lifetime financial planning. Surely not, my friend.
Well, it would seem so, and I think it's almost as if we plan or rehearse this show, which of course is laughable, really, because following neatly on from your opening remarks there, Carl, about the man in the arena really being around people who are actually doing the work and failing, like trying again, versus those who are not doing the work, but they are highly critical of those doing the work. I'm not, for obvious reasons, going to name names, but it wouldn't take too much digging around to find out about this stuff. As my following on social media, Twitter in particular grows, I get more and more, pushback, negativity. I post, comments, and you can guarantee almost every comment that I post or write about, I'll get a handful of people saying, "You're wrong, that's stupid, you haven't thought this through," whatever. I've got a couple of points to make on that. One, it's just an opinion, guys. It's just Twitter. It's not an academic research report or anything. It's just an opinion, and we're all entitled to our opinions, as we'll talk about later on in this show. But one thing that really stood out for me was a recent comment. Some of the stuff I say is boring. It's repetitive. It's the same old story, and a lot of the messages the four of us often repeat and talk about on this show and in other places. And it's the concept of that investing is a multi-decade strategy. You're generally investing. We sort of default to saying 30 years. And one of the reasons we say 30 years is that somebody retiring around 60 or in their early 60s, there's a very high, significant chance that at least one of that two-person couple will still be alive 30 years later, in their 90s. Statistically proven fact. And in fact, beyond that, if you are quite elderly, you're probably thinking about the next generation. You're thinking about your children, your grandchildren, maybe a foundation or a charity you want to support. So you should always be thinking long term. So I posted something saying, 30-year time horizons or something. And I get attacked for that, saying, no one's investing for 30 years, Alan. No, most other people need access to their income before 30 years. Most people who are in retirement need to spend their money during the retirement. And I'm thinking, no shit, Sherlock. That is what proper financial planning is. You're identifying the liquidity needs. You're identifying who needs to spend what and when over a meaningful time period. You're building in comfort factors. You're building in buffer savings amounts for unexpected emergencies and so on. That is what this whole damn thing is all about. This is the essence of real financial planning. And to get a message back from somebody who, I think the point is, they just didn't understand the very essence of what it is that we do. And so I'm always on a hiding to nothing. If I say something and I'm speaking to somebody, an audience who misunderstands the fundamentals, and I'm not being personal about it. I mean, I've done, this is my profession. This is what I do for a living. Of course I understand it. But people who are standing on the outside, people who are not in the arena, who are throwing stones at me and you guys and others, telling me things which are just fundamentally wrong, I'm sorry, but I'm going to call them out. As I say, I'm not mentioning names. It's not appropriate. But if you're not actually practicing this stuff, if you're not actually doing the stuff day to day, then I would encourage you to learn more about the actual profession and the day job that we all show up every day and do our best to deliver. Chairman.
Very, very good. And that is a nice segue from Carl's point. Absolutely. And I'll just maybe close on this unless anyone else wants to add anything. I don't think we sometimes understand how ignorant some people are of what we do. We kind of, because we're immersed in this world and we do it all the time, right? And we're totally focused on delivering great financial planning and good client outcomes. And we kind of assume everyone else is, even people who don't do what we do, but comment on what we do. But the ignorance is surprisingly deep. Mr. Hart, your digit was raised, I believe.
Yeah, if we take just a typical client example, let's say a client couple who was 65, retired 15 years ago in 2008, and they had X hundreds of thousands of pounds for their retirement years. They're halfway into that journey now. They haven't spent all of their money. They would have obviously taken a little bit out. Life would have happened, things would have changed. And they would have been halfway on that journey. They wouldn't have spent that money out, down to zero. Hopefully the idea is it would be more than when they started, obviously purchasing power being the key thing. And obviously if you just extrapolate that out for hundreds and thousands of couples that are retiring all the time, then obviously that's how it works. We obviously know that short-term cash flow needs are baked in. If you need X in 6 months, you need Y in 3 years, then that again can be factored into it. So I don't understand why you can't see real life client journeys and sort of attach that to his or her comments. Back to you, Nick.
Yep, well said, Andy. Okay, another story from Mr. Smith. Who says crime doesn't pay, Alan? This is a CityWire article. By the way, there are links to everything we talked about today. There will be links to it in the so-called show notes.
It's just this is a topical timestamp. I saw this. I do browse the trade press once a week and see the headlines that come up, and I saw this, and your heart sinks, doesn't it, when you see one of these stories? This was a company which was effectively a defined benefit pension transfer factory. Effectively, they pushed through 1,000, over 1,000 DB pension transfers for a combined. Ouch! Yeah, it was painful. The combined assets value was 392 million, so the thick end of 400 million of assets in the course of, I think it was 2 years, a very short time period. When you break down, and there was two advisors in this company. They were doing about 5 a week or something of these things. There was almost none which they said, no, this is not appropriate to do a transfer. So they were absolutely shoving these things through at a hell of a pace. And of course, it ends up getting some complaints, getting some, getting the ombudsman involved, getting the FSCS, of course. The company gets closed down. But so on 400 million of value and transfer values, I mean, even if they took 1%, and I'm assuming they took a lot more than 1%, that's 4 million. If they took 3%, which is probably more likely, that's about 12 million pounds of fee/commission over a very short period of time across two advisors. So they get rumbled. FCA comes in, tells them, just pulls them apart. Everything they've been doing has been wrong. And they get fined about 600 grand each. And there's an ongoing debate about the affordability. They might not be able to afford the fines, so they're negotiating with the regulator about paying a lower fine. These guys have made millions. They have made millions from this. There is no doubt about it. You employ some sort of kind of auditor to track through the money, where it's come in, where it's done. There's no way that they haven't earned, 400 million over a short period of time with DB pension transfers. And that was that, that's the sort of the headline of the question mark. Who says crime doesn't pay? Go out there, just, get your basic level qualifications, do a ton of this type of work, get closed down in the end, by which time you bank the money, you've probably got it invested in offshore or whatever else, accept the fine, move on. It's a pretty sad tale, really, and reflects badly on our entire sector.
That's appalling. I've just looked up the name of the firm. I don't recognise them or the two directors' name, but that's you're right. You're right on the maths. But I don't know how they work out the fines, because maybe the fines are based. It's no point finding someone like 10 million quid if they haven't got it, I suppose. But they would have made an absolute fortune from that, whether it was 1%, and especially and ongoing. The ongoing, which we'll come on to, by the way, for the meat and potatoes. Again, that's quite a topical story from you there, Mr. Smith. Shall I move on to the next topical tidbit? I've got something hovering over there. Okay, Mr. Smith, again, you just want to tell the dear Trappists, our beloved audience, there are some important dates coming up, including some very good conferences, and including perhaps the best conference, Octo.
Yes, indeed. We're now in what would traditionally be kind of conference season, aren't we? We normally, after the summer holidays, we kind of get warmed up, and there's generally a lot of conferences going on through September, October, even November. The day this podcast comes out, I will be attending and actually doing a little speaking part at the world famous Progressive Planners Conference run by our friends Lee Robertson and his colleagues at Octo. So if you're listening to this on your way traveling in to that conference on the 14th of September, do reach out, come and say hi to me if you're a beloved Trappist. Love to have a chat and catch up with you. A few days later, myself and my learned colleague, Mr. Hart, will be traveling to the Southern Hemisphere to go to Cape Town for Humans Under Management South Africa. That's 19th, I believe, Andrew, right?
Yep. Tuesday the 19th.
Where I'm speaking at that event as well, as we both are, obviously. Good audience, good attendance.
Are you the international keynote for that one? Is that what you told me to say? Do I say that now? Yeah, you made
me. You made me come on last, which is going to ruin my entire day. It's like doing a best man speech or something.
At the right time. Thank you.
Wait around all day.
It does. It does ruin your entire day.
Can I change my my profile on LinkedIn to say international keynote speaker? No,
yeah,
that's
definitely.
what I should be doing.
Definitely.
Thank you. I've got an event which is to do with the other award-winning podcast, Bulletproof Entrepreneur, relaunching this month in September as well. Got a live event at Homegrown, the private members club, although on this occasion it will be open to all comers on the 17th of October, where I'll be speaking with Piers Linney, ex-Dragon's Den, close personal friend of mine, and we'll be unpacking the magic of AI and artificial intelligence as it relates to business owners and aspiring entrepreneurs. And last for now, on the next day, actually, on the 18th of October, I shall also be doing something at the Money Marketing Interactive in central London, which I understand is a free conference run by Money Marketing. A lot of interesting speakers.
I'm sure it'll be a great day.
That takes a while. And that's it. So those are dates for your diary. There's 4 dates for your diary. And Andy, if you might as well, whilst you're here, chuck in your, although it is a complete sellout, but if someone wants to, are you doing live streaming for Hum London in November?
Yes, Hum London is on the 9th of November. Yeah, I'm sold out, like well over sold out. But yeah, there is still an opportunity to get the live stream ticket. So thanks for that, mate. Yeah. I'm full on in conference organising at the moment.
Seeing as we're on events that are coming up, the Future You event that I spoke about before is on next week. So hopefully I'll fill you in a little bit at the next episode. Believe it or not, we're sold out. So for us to be sold out and to be at capacity and not accept any more bookings is pretty bloody amazing. So well done to Team Metis and especially Susan Walsh, who's putting all of that together. So can't wait to share some of the insights from that on the next episode.
That's really good, Carl. That is, I mean, that's not an easy sale. I don't think the way it's described, and it's not cheap either. So to sell out, that's great. That's presumably going to be an annual event now for you guys. I think it's great.
Yeah, we'll see. There's some amount of organising that goes behind all of this, so we'll see. But anyway, looking forward to it. Really looking forward to it.
Well done.
Yeah, that's a real feather in your bow, mate. That's exclusivity, and the same for you, Andy, as well. Of course, with Hum. Wow, selling out. Paid for events which are not inexpensive relative to, in quotes, free events, where of course you are the product. Okie dokie. So, talking about the man in the arena and just showing up and doing your work, I was asked by Nucleus Rap to write a piece for them on Trap and our pretty much the first 12 months of Trap and how we got to where we are. Are we happy with what we've done? What do you think what's the secret sauce that's enabled us to be, I think, a success? I'm not being big-headed about it. I think to have nearly 60,000 downloads of a podcast that comes out every other week and is very, very niche and gets such lovely feedback from our beloved Trappists, I think it is a success. I think we all think that. So I wrote a piece via Faith Liversidge for Nucleus Rap. There's a link to it in the so-called show notes, and that was nice to be asked, and hopefully that'll get a few more people listening to the show. So that was all good. But again, my main point in that really is I think Alan made the reference maybe 2 or 3 episodes ago about how many podcasts don't get beyond episode X. And a lot of success in life is just turning up. I think 95% of success is turning up. Just turn up and do your job. And we're just stubborn buggers, aren't we? And we just know we're going to do this, and we do it come hell or high water, whether you're skiing in the Alps, Alan, or I'm stranded in some converted brothel in Sicily. We get on with the it was in the process of being converted quickly for the listeners. Yeah, so that's nice. Anyway, the link's in that. So, right. Mr. Smith again. Yeah, we had one of our Trappists, Tom Kenny, and perhaps a new way to get Mr. Murray's books at prices that aren't arm and a leg variety.
Yeah, shout out to loyal Trappist Tom Kenny, who I believe works up at a great firm, Boost Financial Planning. After, I think it was the last episode, when I referenced one of Nick Murray's books and as part of my Culture Corner reference, and made the point that we all know it's like trying to find hen's teeth, or whatever the saying is, trying to get hold of Nick Murray books without having to remortgage your house in order to get one. No, Tom reached out to me via LinkedIn and referenced a company or an online place you can buy them. It's called Abe, ABE Books. I think it's just abebooks.com. And yeah, you go online there, but I think we've all had a look at it. It's quite a mixed bag. Yes, there are Nick Murray books for like £500-600 there as well, secondhand, but there are some for $5 and $6. Obviously, you got to pay your sort of transport postage fees, which probably be the same again, if not more. But you can get hold of. Seems to be quite a wide range of Nick Murray books accessible for reasonable costs. So thank you, Tom. That's what this network's all about. That's what the community is all about. And we find things that are interesting for us, and others have got ideas or insights that can be shared with the wider audience, then obviously let us know and we'll share them on this podcast. So again, thanks, Tom.
And just very similar on that, there is another website that is UK-based, run by David Hearn, that sells the books. Annoyingly, I believe he's sort of all out of the books at the moment, so it's not a very useful recommendation, but I believe he's going to get some more shipped across. But it's called Financial.
Are you sure? Are you sure? I thought he was parking it for now. He's going to sort of reopen the shop, is he? Okay.
Oh, right. Okay, I don't know. All right, whatever. There's a link in the show notes. It's called Financial, spelled FHYNANCI.
PHY, mate. PHY.
Yeah, sorry, PHYNANCIAL. It'll be in the show notes.
Apart from having the wrong spelling and the fact that the shop's closed down and you can't get access to the books, that's brilliant. Amazing. Let's move on.
Yeah, the website's crashed as well. So you got the triple whammy there. No, the website's
maybe it has been shuttered then for the moment. Anyway, David Hearn.
Let's stick to Abe Books for the time being.
That was a brilliant resource. Maybe is a brilliant resource. And again, David Hearn, one of the good guys in our mighty profession, as Mr. Hart labels it quite correctly. Okay, I think we've given Topical Tidbits a damn good thrashing. Let's move on to the meat and potatoes. And this could go a variety of ways. We could all by the end be sworn enemies of each other. I don't think we're going to be sworn enemies of each other. But the great feed, if there's anything, active versus passive maybe. St. James's Place, bad. Everyone else, good. And then the fee debate. I think those are the three things that get people's juice is flowing. So we're going to talk about the great fee debate. Obviously, we've come a long way as a profession since RDR. Some of us were fee-based before RDR, but it's not just about being fee-based. It's how you charge your fees and how you communicate your fees. And we're going to lead off with Mr. Smith, who for once has an opinion or two.
I do indeed. And you're absolutely right. You want to talk about, it's about time we put this on the agenda as the meat and potatoes to talk about fee structures and fee debates. And before I sort of expand on this, let me just say we've all got our opinions and I've got our views. I don't for a second suppose to tell other financial planners or any other business owners how to run their business, how to charge within their own organizations. You do whatever works for you. It has become known that we've taken a different route, and I can tell you, I'll share the background to it, and it's working for us. I'm here to share some of my journey, some of our experiences, but not to say that my way is better than everyone else's way. It's here for an open discussion, an open debate. So let me take you back in time. Some years ago, 7 years ago.
Grab yourself a drink, a very long drink. It's story time with Alan Smith.
Yeah, thank you. The origin story of this, in fact, I can go back to the beginning of when we started in business. So pretty much every aspect of the business, which is capital asset management, has evolved and has changed over the years. When we got started, our investment proposition was largely an active management investment proposition. We did little or nothing in the way of what I call traditional financial planning and cash flow modeling, because I don't think those tools really existed. I didn't really understand. I never heard of the likes, sort of conversations like behavioral coaching, behavioral finance, and all that sort of stuff. So we're very traditional IFA. Every one of those aspects has changed. It has evolved as we've learned. I've got a bunch of really smart, thoughtful colleagues here, most of whom have been with me for many, many years. And we are forever challenging the status quo. We're forever looking at how we do things and wondering and asking ourselves, are there better ways of doing things? And every one of those, as I say, from investment to financial planning to behavioral coaching, every one of those we've evolved and changed. And I think what we offer now is significantly better than what we offered, 10, 15 years ago. There's one aspect that hadn't changed until a few years ago, and that is the structure and the way that we charge professional fees for our services. As we know, this industry was born and brought up on a percentage of assets, or AUM model. We go back. I'm old enough to know that when we used to recommend products and unit trusts and things, the manufacturer of the product were the ones who dictated how you got paid, and they generally defaulted to a percentage of assets basis, and they told you how much they'd pay, and so that became the default approach. Then Retail Distribution Review came along in 2012, and traditional commissions and having product providers and manufacturers tell you what you're going to get paid, that went out of the window, and it moved across to a fee, and I put fee in inverted commas basis, in as much as you were now, as the advisor, you had the ability to agree your fee with the client, and yes, you could still collect it from the investment account, but it was up to you and not a third party, not the product provider, to tell you. But a lot of the evidence would point to the fact that almost everyone just carried on charging the same way as they were charging before, and the traditional 3% initial commission became 3% initial fee. The ongoing 0.5% trail commission became traditionally 1% ongoing trail fee. And so there wasn't much change. So coming up for 7 years ago, as part of our continual process to review, analyze, and kind of challenge the way that we think in our company, myself and colleagues, we got together, we had an away day, an offsite, and we kicked this around for the best part of a day, working out what the best way was to charge for professional services. Because what we had realized by this point, and I don't think this is really up for dispute, is the vast majority of the value that we delivered to clients was in the planning. It wasn't the investment management. I would stand by and say our investment proposition is world class. It's up there with the best that I've ever seen out there, but it's not the be all and end all. It's not where our real true value is. So therefore, we were challenging ourselves. If that is the case, if our real value is in thoughtful planning, structuring, project management, ongoing coaching, all that stuff, why on earth are we tying our professional fee structure to the value of the client's retail investment products they have managed by us? There's a disconnect. There's a massive disconnect. there was four key points. We distilled it down to 4 key headings, which were cross subsidy. The larger clients pay a disproportionate amount of fees compared to the smaller clients. Therefore, there's a cross subsidy that exists. If a client's got £1 million of assets, theoretically, he's paying 10 times more than a client with £100,000 of assets, albeit it can be discounted based on size. There's also the contingent nature. In order for you to get paid anything, the client has to invest money with you. Whereas sometimes the best advice is to pay down debt, is to help your children, is to do something else, not necessarily invest more money. There's also the cost, the compounding effect of cost, a percentage of assets model, which increases in line with long-term market returns, is costly. Or we talked before about having multi-decade investment programs. Paying 1% a year for 30 years is actually pretty costly when you look at the compounding effect. And last but not least, the conflict of interest that exists. There's an inherent conflict of interest if the only way I can get paid is by taking a percentage of the investment funds that you give to me. I mean, I would say the vast majority of financial advisors are good, honest, and ethical, and they wouldn't be influenced by this. But if the client thinks for a second that your advice is likely to be conflicted, that's an issue. And the last point I'm going to say is there's 2 huge markets that you're missing out on charging a percentage of assets basis. One is younger people who have got little or no assets, but they're sort of fast-moving, sort of career-oriented young professionals or business owners. And the other one is the entire the business owner market itself. We all say that clients who are business owners who own a limited company, husbands or wife or whatever, they're great ideal prospects for us to work with. The majority of them have got most of their wealth tied up in the value of their business and maybe their property. So we're missing out if we're still charging percentage of assets basis, then we're potentially missing out on a huge market. So nearly 7 years ago, we pretty much overnight changed and we moved our fee structure from a percentage of assets basis to effectively a retainer, a subscription, a monthly paid subscription model, which is predicated on value. There's a number of other factors based into it, but it's a value-based subscription model, which we think works really well. And we have certainly picked up a number of very great clients because they prefer this model to what they perceive as being a rather more conflicted model that the rest of the sector chooses. That, gentlemen, is enough from me for the time being. I will put my hard hat on and stand by for your comments. Andy, you're going to, I think, lead off case for the defence. Go on.
That was brilliant, Alan. You brought up loads of really useful points. Thanks for that. We could talk about this all day, so we're going to try and just chip in and say a few points. The bulk of financial advisors still charge on an AUM basis. I'm not saying that's right or wrong, but we can come back to that in a minute. I do know a lot of advisors that have been diehard and very vocal about subscription charging and then have backtracked over the years. There's a very famous company that is the name of tuna fish who was very vocal about this, and there's a few other people that we know as well. AUM fee charging is the worst form of client charging except for all the others, in my opinion. Also, I'm 6 years into running Maven Advisor. I'm on version 23 of my fee client agreement, which is also quite interesting. I think this debate as well sometimes tries to focus on the misconception is the charging structure is where the integrity is, whereas I don't think that's the case. I think the integrity is with the firm and the advisor. I could show you a subscription charging crook, and an AUM financial planning god, as such. So it's the person and the integrity. I do get the conflict of interest. It's an allocation of capital question. If I've got a client that says, I've got £100,000, do I pay my mortgage off, buy a holiday home in Spain? If I have low integrity, I will say, oh, no, of course not. That'd be a ridiculous thing to do with your money. You should definitely add this to your investment portfolio with me, then therefore my greedy fee increases. Whereas, as you say, it's the integrity of the person, not, the fee charging structure. There's a couple of pros for the AUM model. It's seamless. It's quite easy to understand. It's all taken, you are sort of in this together. The more wealth I look after you and the more wealth I grow in a controlled way, my fee will be commensurate for that. And obviously, if there's the declines in the market that are outside of our control, again, I'll take a hit on the fee. There's lots and lots and lots of things to discuss about this. Also, a lot of these subscription fees, they are, in my opinion, they are disguised AUM. So, for example, if let's say I have a client where I say, I'm going to charge you 25 grand, you've got a few quid, you're worth 10 million pounds, I'm looking after 3 million. If I equate that to an AUM fee amount, that works out to be 0.83%. So yeah, there's a couple of points. The final thing I'm going to talk about is you as financial advisors, you need to be really aware of the difference between your advice versus DIY. So over the years, I've decided to call this the no help version. So never call it DIY. Say you've got an option, you've got two options. You used to call it DIY, don't call it DIY. Say you've got two options now. You've got the no help option over there where you get no help, do it all yourself. Or you can come with me and I'm called the help option. So it's not fee paying advice option versus DIY. It's the no help versus the help. The help option is obviously both charging structures, subscription fees and AUM. But yeah, just a point to sort of shoehorn in there. Who's next? Over to you, Carl.
I would encourage everybody to watch this one on YouTube because we got a big lecture about muting our mics before today's episode. So you can't hear us giggling in the background because as Andy was talking, Alan was shaking his head vigorously going, no, that's not the case. So you're gonna miss out on the body language and sorry that you missed out on the giggling. Yeah, look, I the first thing I would say is I am extremely interested and remain extremely interested in Alan's fee structure. And Alan will tell you, I have sat with Alan for literally hours on end trying to explore this, right? So where I suppose I'm coming from, the Irish model is still way back where you guys have come from. So there's still high upfront commissions, high initial commissions, big 3%, 4%, 5% initial fees and all that kind of stuff. So where we have evolved to is a million miles away from that, but we are on the AUM model. For me, there's loads of reasons. I will never, ever rule out changing the structures. I think Andy's point is really well made that he's on version 23 or something like that. You know, this is something that you got to be keeping an eye out, and I'm all ears all of the time. However, for now, where we've landed is the AUM model. I find it's simple. It's easy for us to kind of explain to clients. So for us, especially for the platform business, it's the platform fee, the Metis fee, and then the fund manager fee. There you go. And we've kind of a rule that at every single review meeting, you remind the client again, these are the fees and these are the split outs, so that everybody knows what everybody's getting paid. So I have a famous phrase here: there are no gray areas when you do your business with Metis. You know exactly what it is. It's up to you to decide whether that's value or not. For me, and I don't know if the tax rules are different, it would be as it stands now. Then I have spoken to Alan about this, but as it stands, it will be tax inefficient just to charge a fee from the point of view of VAT being applied to fees, and also from the point of view of it being tax efficient to deduct fees directly from pensions on the AUM basis.
Just to quickly jump in there, I think I'm right in saying this, Alan. Isn't it the VAT and the tax is a net for both models in the UK?
It's exactly the same.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying.
I don't know the Irish tax.
Yeah. I'm just saying the UK, from a VAT tax point of view, it's a net, Carl. So back to you, my friend.
So that wouldn't be the case in Ireland for people who are not paying fees via business. Anyway, that's probably a moot point because that's a kind of technicality, right? So let's not talk about technicalities here. So it's ultra transparent is what I'd say, and we're like over the top on the transparency. We've had people join our business going, I think we potentially are losing business here in Metis because we're being transparent where others aren't. And I'm like, be that as it may, that's a non-negotiable. That's part of the integrity piece here. So just in terms of addressing a couple of points that you made, Alan, and I was writing something down when you made one of them. So I think there was kind of 4 key points, and I've kind of, so I suppose the reason I'm going to say this is to just assure everybody that I've thought this one through. So and allowing myself change my mind on this too. Okay, in terms of the cross subsidy, it's a very well made point, and it's a fair point. So how we limit that, or limit it is probably a good point. Is we put in a tiered structure. So depending on the AUM, the fee does come down quite significantly. The product dependent piece. There's two kind of points I would make on that. It's people have to do product in order for you to be paid. So we do charge for the plans, but not all the time. Okay, straight up. So if we feel that this is a really good client for us, we will actually say we'll waive it, or we might say here's the fee, and if you do business, we'll waive the fee because it'll be part of the AUM fee. So like we do have lots of instances. No, that's not true. We have instances whereby we have just charged for a plan and done no business. I do have tons of instances where we have told people who came to us with a ball of money saying they want to invest, and then we did a plan and found out they had debt, and the debt was rising and rising in terms of cost because interest rates were rising. We've loads of cases where we can show, no, we told the client to go and pay off the debt and come back to us when things change around. The conflict of interest, I'm not really sure about that one, Alan, but I'll take that one away and kind of think about that a little bit more, because after all, when people kind of walk through our door, I would expect they understand that what they're going to ultimately get is a financial plan that may derive some financial products. So I'm not sure if the AUM model kind of expressly gives a conflict of interest. Where I did feel there was a conflict of interest was, and it's not to say that we don't do business with insurers, but when you have an insurer who won't break out the actual product cost, so the pension cost, and then the fund cost, because they're also the fund manager, that can lead to a conflict of interest. And indeed, if they're paying people initial commissions, well, there you go. They're kind of, you've got I don't want to name names because I got in trouble for that before. So if you had XYZ Pension Company Limited, and you've got the XYZ personal pension in the XYZ managed fund, and you're the broker, financial advisor is being paid a big upfront initial commission from XYZ Pension Company Limited. There's conflicts of interest all over the place there. So look, in summary, I think your points are well made. I think it's a good debate. It's certainly something that is on my agenda literally all of the time. And Alan, you did forget in all your events, to say that you are coming over to talk to the Metis team in September, and that will most definitely be part of the discussions that we will be having at that time. But I to my final point, Andy's point is really well made. That look, as long as you can, act with integrity, do the best for your clients, and be transparent about it, I think then, I won't say it doesn't matter what model you're on, but it matters less what model how you're charging your clients.
Okay, agreed. Mr. Chairman, let me just come back on that before you jump in with your views, if I may. Again, we're having it's great. This is violent agreement here. We're all agreeing with each other, and I think that's perfectly reasonable to be able to do. But just coming back on a couple of points, the fact, look, of course, as I said, the vast majority of advisors are honest and ethical. We are, particularly in the UK, Ireland as well, and around the world, we have got a regulatory environment which discourages sharp practice, and most, not all of the cowboys are out. But in the same way as we've said before, we believe we don't believe in active management as a sort of core investment proposition, but I'd rather be with some active managers than some passive advisors. But I'm just trying to get the sort of best of all worlds. I'm assuming you're ethical. I'm assuming you've got a thoughtful investment proposition. I'm assuming you do real financial planning all the time to every client. And I'm also therefore saying my version of ideal and perfect kind of client value proposition has a fee structure which is more modern and more relevant and supports the view that most of the value is elsewhere other than the assets and asset management. And I have to say, this wasn't just me and my colleagues thinking about this. We were getting pushback. We've got a lot of really smart entrepreneurial clients. And I remember speaking to a few of them who just sold businesses. And I was doing my assets under management fee pitch to them. And they were saying, Alan, honestly, your fee model is nuts. I don't really care about this investment thing. this planning stuff that you've done for me and my wife is amazing. Love it. I'd pay you a big fee for that. I don't care about the other stuff. So we were very influenced over the years by having clients who pushed back and really encouraged us to evolve our fee model. But a couple of quick points. Just because you listen, the default answer is it's just easier. Clients prefer it, we prefer it, and it is definitely easier. But so is offering an active investment management proposition. If I told all our clients, we review the markets, we buy and sell, we do all this, a lot of our clients would quite like it. It's a kind of easier proposition. Just because it's easy doesn't mean you should always do it. Is number one. Number two, on an assets, we're all business owners here. If you were to really consider the fact that you've got little or no control over your future revenues, and it's your future revenues and therefore your profits are predicated by global events over which you've got zero control, up and down. That doesn't sound like a sound business model. Your revenue, our revenue, well, anyone who's an assets-based fee model could literally fall 10, 15, 20%, 30% in the course of a year. And that's going to wipe out, for most advisors, that's pretty much all their profit. They're now making a loss for a period of time. And I used to saying, well, we'll bank this sort of money in the good days and we'll sort of bring it out in the bad days. I don't think it's a sound business proposition. If I was going to invest in a business over which they had got zero control of their future cash flows and revenues, I would be questioning that as a business model.
Zero's a bit strong there.
What influence do you have over the global capital markets, which determine your revenues in your business?
Well, we don't have any.
There could be a bomb could go off somewhere this afternoon, and the market, your income will fall.
I'm not saying we have any influence. I'm saying the historical data, goes back centuries. So we've got some insight of where we're going to move. We just don't know exactly which direction. But yeah,
and I suppose my point on that would be, well, if we're asking our clients all the time to look to the long term, then we should also be prepared to look to the long term. And I suppose that was our big move towards the trail model, the lower initial fees and all of that kind of stuff. So therefore, we're going to take the rough with the smooth over a long period of time. I'm comfortable that will smooth itself out.
Okay.
And also our ambitions are aligned. So I'm feeling the pain with the clients, and when things are going well, then everybody is happy. And just the final point of that, if we have clients who kind of invest on one of our lower tiers and move through, more than we will, and we have done, and we will continue to reduce their fees as we go. So there are benefits.
It seems odd to me that the value that you deliver to clients. And the work and the time probably during periods of market stress and tension where capital market values fall will increase, and yet your revenues will fall. Now, I don't know. I know nothing about your kind of your business and your P&L and your sort of forecasts and stuff. But there's plenty of businesses that if they had, which has happened many times in the past, sustained periods, I'm talking 5, 7, 8 years of low or zero market returns or negative periods of negative return. You're going to have to, and this has happened before. I'm aware of various companies that start making redundancies. They start after laying off staff, which is not ideal from if you're hiring people. If your business income fell 30% and stayed low for 2 or 3 years, someone's going to have to take the hit.
Let's hear from the Watford Wise one. Over to you, Chairman.
Well, Carl, just if you have something pertinent to say, my friend, you normally do.
Yeah, I think saying that we're going to have 5 to 7 years of zero return, right? Would that hurt Meadows Ireland? 100%. However, if Meadows Ireland was 100% fee-based and we had 5 to 7 years of zero return, that would also hurt us because we'd have difficulty, number one, collecting fees, and number two, I'm not sure the business would come in as it had done. So I don't think it's to say that one model is, going to be totally sheltered from that kind of environment. I think that model, every model would struggle if that happened. We spoke in the last episode about having a few difficult conversations with clients because we've had no growth for 18 months. But we'll man up and we'll talk about it. And final point is, do we have loads more work to do when? Did we have loads more work to do when Russia invaded Ukraine and markets took a bit of a hiccup? Nope, because we do all of that really hard work and training with our clients along the way in the good times.
Okay, that's great. Okay, well, I've made some notes there, and I just want to let me. Can I just frame this from how I see things? I don't really give a damn how you get paid, as long as you get paid for the work you do, and as long as the customer knows what they're paying. I don't give a monkey's really. At the end of the day, this is what we charge. This is what you get. No hidden fees. I mean, we had a TRAPist question come in yesterday, which we'll get to eventually in a future episode. Not a financial advisor, Joe Public, who is struggling to get details of the actual fees he is paying on his portfolio from his IFA firm. So there definitely are IFA firms out there and some more vertical firms that are somewhat opaque in their charging structure. Okay, well, we're not like that. Okay, it's kind of a given. So putting that to one side, I don't give a damn as long as if the main thing for me is transparency. So let's get that out of the way. Alan, you've got no control over inflation, my friend. And I mean, I presume your fixed fees are going up by 16%. Otherwise, your bottom line is going down. So none of us have control over pretty much anything, and that's just life. I do think you can charge more for clients with bigger portfolios, God forbid, because if your value proposition is behavior modification, which ours is, and sticking to the plan, stopping those people making really stupid mistakes, and also around lifetime allowance, annual allowance. Yes, that's bigger ticket stuff. And you know, as Andy says, we're answering expensive questions, and people with more money, not a judgment call, it's just a fact. People with more money have more expensive questions that need answering, because if they get the wrong answer, they're screwed. So I do not have a problem with charging more for people with more money and more complex situations. This old canard about, well, if you're charging a fee of 1% a year, it comes out of their returns, and over 30 years, it affects the investment performance. If you've got £1 million to invest and your annual fee is 1%, that's £10,000. You know, in a flat fee model, they've only got £990,000 to invest, because 10,000 of that million is going to the flat fee advisor. There's only so much money. You can't make money grow on a tree. That £10,000 could have been invested, and over 30 years, yeah, that would have made a lot of money. It's just maths. The conflict thing, I do think is that there's some truth in that, but that comes back to, you know, how honest are you and your integrity. And that's why, you know, I have a very steep tiered structure. You know, it's 1% on the first $500,000 and then 0.25 on the balance. Most of my clients have more than $500,000. When they disinvest, you know what? It doesn't actually impact my bottom line that much. And I'd like to think I wouldn't. I get a strange buzz from telling people to spend the money. You know, we do the cash flow and they're, you know, spending the kids' inheritance, skiing, SKI. I like it, even though part of me must know intuitively, well, this is, you know, going to knock a few pounds off the bottom line. But I just being able to tell people such great news, I honestly don't have a problem with it. I don't think I've ever had a conflict where I thought afterwards, you know what, that was just for me to get some money. I should have told them to pay off the mortgage or what have you. Also, the fact that most of my clients, and probably you, are retirees, so the debt question is kind of just that's in the past. And in terms of it, most of the money I manage is existing money that's already been invested. It's very rarely I'm saying to clients, invest new money. I mean, I do it, you know, top up your ISAs and put some money in a GIA, but most of it is you've got these 7 or 8 pension pots, you've got this ISA over here, you've got this unit trust. Let's just put it all together. So it's money that's they're already products. Most people need products to reach their financial salvation, to hit financial independence. And the fact you're taking money from a product, I don't think clients, that does send up a conflicting message. If you're saying to clients all the time, our value is behavior modification and sticking you to the plan, it's not about investment performance. The fact that money comes from the investments is not, I don't see that as a big issue. And the fun, and this is the lazy thing. It's, as I think Andy alluded to, it's just easier, man. It's just this. We get paid one, and Carl to a degree. You mentioned we get paid X% a year. It comes off your investments. You're a sentient adult. Our regulator thinks you don't understand percentages. You obviously bloody can, because you've got some wealth and success in your life. You're not dim. We charge X%. It just comes off your investments. That's it. You know, job done. No standing orders, no direct debits, no go cardless or anything like that. And it's clean. But that's a self-serving argument to a degree, because it's easier for us as well. And your points about the market cycles, yeah, okay, fine. I mean, you know, there are some really badly run firms out there that just haven't got any capital reserves. They just spend what they bring in each year, and that's what the reserves. You know, you got to be. If you have a lean business, you can get through the downtimes, and you do wear the client pain as much as they do. And, you know, we're always saying to our clients, the advance is permanent. Under the AUM model, the business income will permanently go up. There will be temporary declines because the markets go through temporary declines. But I'm not knocking one way or the other. I think, Alan, what you've done is magnificent, and to have the confidence in your value and the ability to sell flat fees when everyone else is doing it off the invested assets, that's absolutely magnificent. The main thing for me is, are you transparent? That's I can't hammer. RDR was a fantastic thing for this. It changed a lot of the industrial IFAs into professional IFAs, and I know a lot of them did go from 3 plus a half commission to 3 plus a half fee, or 3 plus 1. We certainly don't. I'm naught plus 1. I don't charge initial fees. And it's if you want to walk away from me at any stage, you walk away, and we part as friends. As I say, I heavily discount it for larger portfolios. Nice and easy. Job done. Any pushback?
I'm going to come back just with a couple of brief points, and then I'll wrap up for this episode. Because as you say, this you could spend an entire afternoon or a day, or as long as you want, discussing this. And there's, believe me, there's merits for and against. I mean, we have learned a lot of lessons. There is a lot of behavioral thoughts around even positioning it. Because when we literally decided, as of tomorrow, we're going to do this. Basically, we came up with how we arrived at our fees, and we just started talking to clients. And I've been in many's a room, positioning things for a prospective client, and I've said our fee is £12,000, and it just sounds like a lot of money. Versus, if it was a 1% or 0.5%, it would actually be more money. Actual, fee would be more, but it sounds to the prospective client like nothing. There's no doubt about it. I agree with you, Nick. People aren't stupid, but
did that £12,000 equate to 0.95% of AUM?
Yeah, exactly. You know that client. But there have been situations where I've said our fee is, and I've said the amount, and they said, "Oh, that sounds a bit steep." And I've told them what they're currently paying, and it's like double it, but it's in a percentage terms. So there's a lot of learnings. The other thing, this whole thing is very misunderstood. When you get into the murky world of alternative fee structures, and I know a lot of the people, the firms that are charging flat fees, retainer subscriptions, you name it, they're almost all different. They're almost all different. Some charge exactly the same fee, regardless of the client. A client with £20 million or a client with £200,000, same fee, which we don't. And that's the other thing to be aware of. I think you alluded to it, Nick. We do have, because we do recognize the value. And definitely if a client has got significantly more assets, or there's a lot more complexity. This is the key thing here. A client with £1 million, but he's got 3 offshore bond structures or something. He's got 2 ex-wives. He's got all sorts of stuff going on in their lives. Versus the client who's just sold a house or something. He's got £1 million in cash and says, "Well, how should I invest this?" They've got the same quantum, if you like, but the value and the complexity are significantly different. Why should one pay exactly the same as the other? It just doesn't make sense. The thing about yes, you're right. Our fees, I think the key thing is with a subscription model, we reserve the right, and we do increase our fees in line with the prevailing rate of inflation. Obviously, we're in an inflation spike right now, but what we know is long-term inflation is lower than capital market returns. That's the whole point of investing. We're all about trying to get a model that we are every single client is profitable. We're making our margin, and our costs as our costs go up, we're increasing our fees in line with them, not in line with the equity markets, because our costs don't go up in line with the equity markets. So we believe it's a fairer model. And the last thing I'm going to say, and it's just it's our view and our opinion. We're talking about having a profession as opposed to an industry. You compare yourself to other professions, and I mean real professions. If you go and get surgery, if you're going to get knee surgery at a Harley Street surgeon, a private hospital in Harley Street, for example, you want to get the best surgeon. If he said to you how much money you got, and you say, "Well, I've got quite a lot of money." He says, "Well, I'm going to charge you double because you've got low money." "How much have you got?" "Well, I don't have a lot of money here." "Okay, I'll charge you a lower fee." That's the issue. Our model is predicated on how wealthy you are, and there is an increased value. The bottom line product is roughly the same. There are benefits, there are advantages for some with more complex affairs, but and I'm just trying to have a fee structure which is aligned to other real professions and not sales industries like estate agents.
Okay, 2 points.
I'm done.
Two points there. I mean, if you're seeing a Harley Street surgeon, they know you've got money in the first place. So that analogy falls flat a little bit from my point of view. I don't want to be compared to solicitors, thank you. I don't want to be compared to accountants, thank you. We do something different. The fact they can't charge the way we can charge is neither here nor there. So I think we've gone beyond this thing of comparing ourselves to other professions and feeling sort of looking up to these people on pedestals, because I think we're at least, in terms of the value we add, the equal. And I'm sure we've all got, with the legal profession, this, but we've all had conveyancing nightmares, right? And it's like, we are so far ahead in terms of service to some people in other in quotes professions. I'm looking at the camera, so I'm not looking at the screen. Andy, thank you, my friend.
Yeah, a couple of points to finish on. Hats off to you, Alan. I mean, you have done something very difficult that you didn't have to do. It would have been maybe a bit easier for you to continue on the AUM model. So well done for that.
Definitely, yeah.
I think a lot of people do confuse when they hear fixed fees. They always think low. So I'm sure you've got contacted by so many people going, "Oh, Martin Lewis said that I've got to find a fixed fee person. What is it, 40 quid a month?" And you're like, "No, it's like
we've had exactly that. We've had a few interesting conversations. Oh, I love your fee model, and you tell them how much it is. They go, "What? I thought you were cheap." We're value.
And also, a lot of the other firms that we know that are successful in this space, they also charge high agreed fees or subscription fees. Fixed fees are obviously again a bit of a misnomer. I mean, I do like the Nick Murray quote. This doesn't mean anything's good or bad, but Nick Murray says, "I charge 1% a year to help you avoid the mistakes which cost multiples of 1% a year," which is basically what Nick was alluding to, Nick Lincoln. The final point I'm going to talk about fees is the hybrid model. I think the hybrid model's got legs. An agreed fee with a client and still a percentage AUM on the investments, because it is administrative to manage it. I believe the more wealth does equal more challenges and issues to deal with for the clients. I think the hybrid's got legs. An agreed subscription fee per month that's sort of fair across everybody, because that's the sort of core offering. And then the more wealth, like for example, 200 quid a month plus 0.3 on the investments or whatever it is, that might be the closest thing to perfect, which obviously doesn't exist. Over to you, Carl.
Thanks. A question for you, Alan, right? So we've spent a good few minutes talking about, well, probably the cons and then the pros of maybe the AUM model, and a lot of times talking about the pros of the fee model. But you're 7 years in now. It can't all be plain sailing. So what would you say are the drawbacks of the model that you currently have, and what would you like to what are the things that you'd like to smooth out over the... Obviously, it remains top of your agenda because it's one of your USPs as you see it. So how do you smooth out the problems that you have at the moment, and how does it look in 3-5 years' time?
Yeah, I mean, that is a really good question, Carl. Andy's already said this. There have been moments, full disclosure, when me and my colleagues have sat around and say, "Why the hell did we do this?" Because it does make life a bit more difficult. Now, sometimes it makes life really good and smooth and easy. And we've absolutely had clients come and knock on our door specifically, and they would not have signed up and become clients if we were AUM percentage. They've told us that. So those are the good days. And the challenging ones are when you're trying to articulate. So we have learned, I mentioned it a minute ago, because we just decided, it's very sort of typical of me and my colleagues here at Capital, we decide on something, we just say, let's just go all in. Let's just, as of tomorrow, let's do this. And we hadn't really thought it through. We hadn't really thought through our comms, our narrative, our pitch, our language. We just said the fee is. And we had various fee tiers, fee models, and it was, by any standards, pretty punchy. It's with fees of, £14,000, £25,000 a year. So you're mentioning that, and it just sounds like a lot of money. So we, that's the challenge, is articulating that, explaining it in language that the prospective client gets and understands. There are challenges around, because we can't automate the inflation uplift. So we've got to have that conversation with clients. And of course, inflation has been pretty benign since we started this. It's been, close to zero. So it wasn't that big a deal. But now we're having to have conversations and, get it back on the table. And I think it's a very, it's probably similar in Ireland, but it's a very British thing. No one likes talking about money. So we've got to bring up at our, annual planning meetings, oh, by the way, can we, talk about the fee structure? We're going to have to adjust and increase the fee structure. That's maybe a conversation you'd rather not have. And if you had an AUM model, it's just automated, isn't it? You're just sort of picking it up. And just to be clear on that as well, we, apart from a few select clients, we still charge in the same way as everyone else does, in as much as we take it from the cash account on the platform. So very few of our clients are actually paying standing orders. Although some are.
Oh, that was my question. Yeah, that was my question.
Right.
How do you, just a prosaic, how do you collect your monthly fees? Okay, fine.
Yeah, it's in the same way as you do, but we tell Transact or whoever else that we use, this is our fee. But it's a bit more labor intensive, put it that way. Ours is to do that, and we've got to review it. when we did our initial, we did do some planning before we launched it. We looked at all our clients and we built these sort of 3 fee structures, effectively based on simple, standard, and complex clients. And we applied that as a kind of as a model across all our clients, just sort of a based on our own opinion. We came to the conclusion that our fee revenue would increase quite significantly. And that told us that a lot of our clients were effectively underpaying. And it was more the complex clients did have a fair bit of money, but they were, we all know there are some clients that are, and they're potentially, well, they are great clients, but my God, you're doing a lot of work for them and they are getting really good value for money versus a client you can barely drag in for an annual meeting because they're very happy. They're getting on with their life but they're paying similar sort of fees. So we did do some analysis, but then you've got to go back and have those, sometimes can be challenging conversations with those clients, those complex clients, and say, you are actually underpaying relative to the value that we are delivering. So those are some of the things. Definitely the articulation of the value proposition and how we've arrived at it has had its moments of challenge, Carl. And I think we've had to learn in real time. We've had to build better scripts, sort of pitch decks, explanations as to how we've arrived. Because sometimes people say, well, how have you arrived at that? Because it's not a percent. If it's not a percentage, what is it then? And we've got our own sort of story behind that in the same way as, we can in certain, we can absolutely, we've got a grandly titled algorithm internally. We've just got a pricing model. We know, we've been doing this a long time. We know how we've arrived at a fee, and particularly for the larger fees, we do speak to, a number of colleagues will look at it and say, what fee would you charge? So look, we're not a mass market business. You would be struggling to do this at scale, with thousands of clients, because we're actually pricing every single client that comes to us, and it is based on a number of variables. And so that in itself is a challenge. It's not just if you are to hire. I know, Carl, you're out and hiring a lot of people right now. If we're going to get 3 or 4 or 5 or 10 advisors come in here, I think it'd be a challenge for us to articulate to them and train them as to how we've arrived at it. We do have a pricing structure. There's a degree of flexibility for the advisors to be able to to work around that depending on the client's circumstances. But those are some of the things. I have to say, as you said earlier on, Andy, I've known a lot of firms that have gone down this route, and I've known quite a few that have backtracked. They said it's just too difficult. It's too difficult, or they've changed, or they've gone the hybrid route. So far, as far as I'm aware, we're definitely not the only one. We have made a success of it. We're still in business. We're still profitable. We're still winning new business and still winning new clients. And we've had to learn in real time how to explain it, how to position it, how to defend it, I suppose. We've definitely lost some earlier prospects. We lost some people knocking our door. Some people just said, it's too complicated. The guy down the road will charge 1%. I get that. That's simple.
And I can understand it.
Yeah, I can understand it.
And come here, we'll put the scripts and the algorithm in the show notes, Alan, yeah?
They cost extra, but for you, my friend, I'll share. All right.
No, look, it's and you have shared, and it's okay. It's a great, I think, really good conversation, and
maybe we have a debate, a trap live next year. We'll sort of go into the weeds on it if you want. I will share within reason.
Couple of points, maybe.
Yeah.
No, but it definitely gets me thinking, and there's no
that doesn't
perfect
take
way.
Much, does it, Carl?
There is not.
Okay, right, we're going into rambling mode. Thank you. I think we've given that a damn good thrashing. Thanks for all of us. Jesus Christ. 68 minutes of my life. Right, let's go on to the next part of the show, because I can see posties at the front door. The bulging sack. And these are the questions posed by our beloved Trappists. You know the routine, trap babies. There's a link in the pinned tweet. You put your questions there and in the so-called show notes, and eventually we'll get to your question. We're still about 15, 20 questions to get through. As I said earlier, we had a gem of a question put to us yesterday, which we're looking forward to answering in the future show. But the first question is from, let's have a look at this. This envelope is particularly well sealed. This is from Jez Heel. Jeremy. Hello, my question relates... Oh, by the way, this question, if you think we've just answered this, then, guys, we'll just move on from it. But hello, my question relates to costs of advice and or the cost of financial services. There is a drive in all industries to reduce costs to the consumer, a good thing. But if the advisor is generating value to the client, then costs should reflect the value added. The constant drive to reduce costs undervalues the work being done. Let the bigger firms drive down costs and deliver generic advice, whilst the smaller firms Focus on niche areas, but charge according to the value they deliver. Adam Davidson's book, The Passion Economy, highlights this really well. This is also linked to Pareto's 80-20 rule. What are your thoughts on this? Andy, you were twitching in lower right on my screen.
I'm not going to answer the question, but just a bit of backstory about Jeremy. He's spent his career in the military. So he's an ex-army major, I believe, and now he's making his transition into our mighty profession. I think for the last 5 or 6 years, I think they retire quite early in the army. I can't quote his age, but I think he's sort of late 30s, maybe early 40s. He spent the last 5 or 6 years consuming personal finance and wanting to get more and more into this space. So yeah, I'm just going to say, welcome, Jeremy, into this mighty profession. I know you're going to be a sort of great success in it. I know you've just recently taken a new job, so I haven't really answered this question, but I'm just sort of putting a bit of a backstory to it. There'll be other people listening to this that might want to get involved in personal finance. It is a fantastic career, profession, calling. It is hard work. The apprenticeship stays quite long, but if you get through that, you're in a fantastic place. Any of the others wish to answer that?
I'll attempt to. I think the last, however long it was, 20 minutes, 30 minutes that we discussed will help answer a fair amount of Jez's question, somewhat. This thing about all industries, there's a drive in all industries to reduce costs to the consumer. I mean, that's just a natural evolution of commoditization. There's certain things, driven by the likes of Amazon and others. A lot of
and capitalism and innovation and technology
and all that. Yeah. But here's where things differ, and this is where the beauty of financial planning can be different. You're right. So there are mass market commoditized products. In any commoditized market, it's all about cost. If you want to buy a bottle of water or whatever it is, or something that's some household good, cleaning detergent or something, within reason, it's really about the cost. Whereas what we do is different, and you can differentiate yourself. The beauty of the four of us, and I think a lot of the listeners, is that we are very intentionally running either solo practices or boutique businesses. So we have the ability to differentiate ourselves from the mass market. If you want mass market, low cost, go to a Nutmeg or whoever they're called, or a various other organizations where you just buy a fund. Vanguard would be an example. Vanguard are an outstanding business, but it's a commoditized service. As we know, they struggle to deliver personalized advice. They closed down their advice business in the UK. So it's different. So the individual boutique business, which can differentiate themselves from a commoditized mass market business, has the opportunity to control their fees and costs far better. There's also, I've heard Rory Sutherland talk about a type of goods or product. Have you heard of it? Veblen, Veblen. Have you heard of this? Veblen goods, which actually, the more expensive they are, the more attractive they are. So think Rolex watches, Porsches, Ferraris, numerous other goods. Some parts of financial planning done well are a bit like that. I mean, we know that to the audience, to sort of the general public, some kind of so-called high-end hedge fund type things were super expensive, but they are attractive because they're expensive. There are some large wealth management companies which seem to thrive despite the fact they're a bit more expensive. So I would say, in answer to, well, he just says, what are your thoughts on this? My thoughts are, protect your margin now. Protect your margin, protect your pricing power by differentiating your service and avoiding any commoditization. I rest my case.
Okay, well said. Right, thank you. I think we should move on to the next question, and this is from this missive has come from Greece. This is from Philip Dragoumis, an IFA that we know, Phil the Greek. He's on LinkedIn. Jez Hill, by the way, didn't have a social link. So, Jez, if you are on Twitter, I can't put it in the show notes because you didn't drop it into the form. Phil Dragoumis asks, if you are a one-man band and you run in-house advised model portfolios, not MPS, should you consider forming an investment committee overseeing your allocations, fund choices, and due diligence procedures? If so, who would you get to be on the committee? Okay, well, I'll have a first stab at this, if that's okay. I mean, this is all about putting things in a line, right? Getting your ducks in a line, or whatever the phrase is. This is an active versus passive kind of question for me, because I think once you've made the move to say passive, I don't think you need, as a one-man band, you don't need an investment committee and you don't need model portfolios. So it's going to be Vanguard or Dimensional or a combination of the two. Don't really sweat it. Mainly in equities, if not 100% in equities. Job done. I don't think you need an investment committee unless you're insecure or you just feel you have to have it on your file if the FCA, want validation for why you've chosen those funds, and you can't communicate that to them without having something to lean on, which is it's a bit of a crutch. If you're active, I mean, Christ knows how you do it. You may want to outsource so that's my thought. If you guys have got anything to add on that, but if you were to outsource, who would you use for that kind of thing?
Timeline. In a word, Abraham and his team have just got a out of a box ready-made thing with an investment committee, with collateral, with all this stuff. If you want to, of course, as you say, Nick, you don't have to do that at all. You can just do what you do. Use one fund. Imagine you having your investment committee, Nick. You talking to yourself. Should we about the one fund? That'd be a short meeting.
No, there'd still be arguments involved.
There would for sure, guaranteed. I mean, there's a few of these organizations around. To me, Timeline is a kind of natural fit right now for businesses. You just outsource. They do everything, and you can brand it in your own, brand, your company's name, details, etc. So that's a shout out for Timeline. For me, what do you think, Andy?
No, I sort of agree with both of your points. There is some collateral out there from these large organisations that provide two. There's collateral out there. So I used to be part of that sort of investment committee where me and two other financial advisors met up. I think we met up every 6 months. It was quite interesting, actually. We did sweat the small stuff and discuss the detail, which was okay because it was every 6 months. So we just wrote down sort of points that we wanted to raise during the meeting because there weren't sort of pressing issues, and then just discussed it amongst the three of us. So it's basically, long story short, it's a mastermind. So get a mastermind together of similar people that run similar businesses that want to get together every 6 months or every year and chew the fat. There are sort of templates, downloads that you can get from various support companies. But yeah, it's a somewhat interesting question.
To say that if you are
Dimensional have a whole suite of
Dimensional
stuff.
They've got everything about how to build an
and then
investment committee. What should be your agenda?
Some of the compliance companies have stuff as well. Back to you, Lick.
Very good, Carl. You okay with it? Just move on. Okay, thank you, sir. All right, that's great. Got a couple of interesting questions there from our beloved Trappists. And as I said in the piece that I put together for Nucleus Wrap, we value your input because you are the show. Because we are you are us. We're practicing advisors talking to, but also wanting to talk with our audience. So please do keep the questions coming in. Okay, without any further ado, let's go on to Culture Corner. Wow. Okay, so Mr. Smith, painkiller, white collar drug dealers. Mr. Hart, even, sorry.
Yeah, over to me. This is the latest Netflix documentary series called Painkiller, which is about the Oxycontin, opioid epidemic that was started in the US. Again, it's around sort of corporate greed and all of the sort of tricks they're up to. Obviously, white collar drug dealing. There's another series called Dope Sick, which is also along a similar vein. It's absolutely staggering watching the destruction that this horrendous drug has had all across America. I think for the first time in the history of the US, average life expectancy is declining due to the impact of this. It's a wonderful documentary all around the Sackler company. The Sackler family, Purdue Pharma, which is the business. Again, it's manipulation, persuasion, marketing. It's horrendous to watch. Very insightful to watch, but horrendous the impact that it's had. I recommend checking it out. It's called Painkiller. Back to you, boss.
Okay, thank you very much. Now, sorry, Mr. Smith, this next one is yours. This BBC Sounds the Wolf of Crypto, which, wow, you described it, my friend.
And Andy, I started watching that Netflix thing last night. Watched the first episode. Really, just insightful, and I just find it just annoying in the extreme and just some angry making. How these organizations, these companies can do this stuff. Anyway, that's a whole other thing.
It's even worse than the crack epidemic. The crack epidemic was obviously non-corporate.
But knowing that, but executives, senior executives at these drug and pharma companies, they know exactly what they're doing, and they're just killing young people. It's a whole other story. Anyway, Yes, I came across this the other day as well. BBC Sounds they've got various podcasts and things, and they've come up with some quite good ones now and again. This one is called The Wolf of Crypto, and what you can imagine what that's going to be about. But what's particularly interesting about this is often we come across these things, and they're usually, in the US or the Bahamas, and Sam, what's his name, and all these sort of crazy things that go on in other parts of the world. This one's much closer to home in that the epicenter was in a place called Amersham, pretty much, was just up the road. My mother-in-law lives there. It's kind of half an hour outside of London. It's not a million miles away from where you two UK-based advisors live and operate from. So it's very close to home. And it's another salutary tale of the craziness that went on a couple of years ago, around 2021, when a guy who was a kind of a rodent inspector, he was a kind of a pest removal guy. He came up with this idea of starting his own cryptocurrency called Coda, I believe, Koda.
Rodent coin.
Rat coin. And it's amazing how you could just start a coin, just start one, and all it is about talking to people. So he used to drink in a local pub up in Amersham, and he would speak to the landlord about it. And before you know it, and they just decide what the value is. And of course, everyone wants to buy it. And it sounds crazy and it sounds funny. It was actually really, really sad. If you listen to the whole story, unfortunately, there was at least one person who's committed suicide over the losses. They've been completely wiped out because, of course, it's not a real thing. It's just a story. It's the classic Ponzi scheme. Everyone wants to buy it. You've got all the people who are sort of drinking in this local pub. They were actually taking this crypto token as payment for your beer and what have you. So I mean, I guess the landlord or the owner of the pub didn't do very well, although he speaks about it. But how everything get caught up. The guy who founded this sort of crypto note coin had an event here, just a very short distance from where I'm speaking to you right now in the city of London at Tower 42, which is the old NatWest Tower. He had this rented all these kind of Lamborghinis outside, hired literally porn stars and dwarfs is literally what it said for this event.
How many flags do you want to be waving of a red variety?
And yet people were queuing up, and during this event they were just saying, if you don't buy now, the price is going to go up. So you have loads of people were literally putting their life savings into this thing. And guess what happened? Of course, it is sort of blown. It pretty much doesn't exist anymore. The value is zero, or as close to zero as can be. Really interesting story because, in particular, it's so close to home. It was around me. It was around us, literally in the last 18 months, 2 years. It's well worth listening to. So BBC Sounds, The Wolf of Crypto.
The madness of crowds, eh? And yeah, the pub is. I looked it up yesterday. It's about 10 miles from me, and it's a very sad. It is a very sad story. But however, that probably won't stop me driving over there, going to that pub, and saying in a very loud voice, "Can I have a pint of Coda, please?" Just to see what the response is from the landlord. He'll probably throw me out of a very thick window very fast. It's me next. Okay, a long time in finance podcast. The 9 Lives of Credit Suisse, kind of in the background over this year because there's other stuff been going on, I suppose, and we're still consumed. Well, I guess the news cycle is still consumed with sending more money to Ukraine. But Credit Suisse has kind of gone down the crapper. It's in a lot of trouble. I think it's been taken over. It's obviously a long-standing Swiss bank. And this podcast it's two city duffers. I think they've both been journalists in and around the square mile for the last 30, 40 years. And it's a two-part breakdown of the 9 Lives of Credit Suisse. Credit Suisse has basically been quite a rogue brand for a long, long time. And they've just made mistake after mistake after mistake. And I think, we think Swiss banks are, they're the pinnacle. They just do it. They've paid out over $11 billion in fines over the years. Most of those fines are coming in recent years, and it's now the denouement. So that's quite an interesting one, and it's quite nice. It's well done. It's not particularly heavy. You don't need to know about swaps or derivatives or anything like that. But again, a big brand, absolutely trashed. Link to that in the show notes.
I listened to that yesterday, Nick, when you posted it. I don't love those two guys the way they talk, I must say, because they were talking about these banks losing millions and billions and being fined, and they were just laughing their heads off. It's as you say, two old city duffers going, "Oh, they got fined another billion." I didn't know. That was just me. It just kind of wound me up a little bit how they were just kind of making light of it, because I've got real issues about this because I don't really understand how, and it's another one of these sort of strange behavioral things. That the super high net worths use these organizations like Credit Suisse and other Swiss banks and others like them, and they entrust their families' life savings to them. And I did a thought experiment a while ago. You put the name of any of these organizations, tap it into Google, and then put the next word, fine, like Credit Suisse, UBS, whatever you name it, Coots, you name it, and the word fine. And you will see story after story after story for the most nefarious crimes, for money laundering, for tax evasion, for you know. And if you're a multi-millionaire client, you hand across your life savings to these organizations and entrust your future family security to them. I just don't get it.
It's all the thing about big brand names. Andy, you're going to make a point.
Yeah, it's that whole safety thing, isn't it? Where someone's got 100 million, 500 million, etc. Yeah, following on from Credit Suisse being bought, fire sale via the Swiss government to UBS. UBS have just announced the largest ever quarterly profit for a bank in history. I think it was about 60 billion, around that number. So yeah, staggering.
Okay, thanks. All right, thanks, guys. And last but by no means least, it's the voice. It's Mr. Widger and Ben Carlson.
Yeah, I'll be brief to finish up. I'm sure loads of our listeners are already connected with or following Ben Carlson, a wealth of common sense on Twitter. I love his articles because they're all absolutely well researched and based in evidence. And the latest one that is in the show notes is the 60-40 portfolio is alive and well. So to contradict and I suppose make sure that we're not in echo chambers, it kind of gives evidence as to why you'd be well placed in a 60-40 fund going forward. I liked it. And as you guys know, as Andy is shaking his head vigorously there, as you guys know, I'm sticking to my guns. I think bonds in a portfolio is okay. I think it's a good place to be if you're looking to the long term. And it was nice for me to read that and get some affirmation that maybe I was right. So that's it from me.
It was nice for Carl to have his biases confirmed. Okay. Now I'm going to ask. That's another pile of trap in the pan. Normally I ask for to review a 6 out of 5 star review as minimum 6 out of 5 stars, but apparently that's not enough anymore. I've also got to ask that you subscribe to our. I mean, what if you're listening to it now? Am I missing something obvious with it, Alan? I probably
just
am.
Hit the subscribe button. Just if you're on Spotify or Apple Podcasts or anything, just hit the subscribe button, which means they will automatically arrive in your feed without you having to look it out, and you'll be the first to hear these wonderful new episodes.
And it helps us in the rankings to find new listeners. So yeah, please do that.
Yeah. It helps us to spread the word, make this a more sort of broader audience. So please do subscribe. And of course, give us a 6 out of 5 star review. Thank you.
Okay. And also do likewise with our burgeoning YouTube channel. If you can like and subscribe to that would be fantastic. But until the next time, dear Trappists, it's adios and take care out there, folks. Thank you for your time. Bye.
Bye-bye, everybody.
See ya.
Bow.